The starship landed on the planet Valoria with a soft hum. Captain Jake Miller stood near the window and watched the alien world below. Purple mountains rose in the distance. Silver towers touched the sky. Everything looked bigger here. Everything looked stronger. Jake was 32 years old. He had brown hair, tired eyes, and a calm face that never showed much emotion. He was not tall. He was not muscular. He looked like an ordinary man from Earth, but there was nothing ordinary about his mission. He was here to marry a queen. The door behind him opened. Lieutenant Emma Park walked in with a tablet in her hand. She was young, smart, and worried about everything. Right now, she was worried about Jake. "The Valori delegation is waiting," she said. "They don't look happy." Jake turned around and smiled a little. "They never look happy. Captain, this is serious. The Valori are the strongest warriors in the galaxy. Their queen rules over 100 planets. And they think humans are weak. I know what they think." Emma stepped closer. "Then you know this marriage is not about love. It is about politics. Earth needs this alliance. The Valori Empire has weapons and ships that could protect us for centuries. But if you fail the trials, if you embarrass them, the whole deal falls apart." Jake picked up his uniform jacket and put it on slowly. "I won't fail. How can you be so calm?" He looked at her with those tired eyes. "Because being calm is the only weapon I have right now." The walk to the throne room took 20 minutes. Jake and Emma moved through long hallways made of white stone. Valori guards stood everywhere. They were tall, almost 8 feet. Their skin was silver like metal. Their eyes glowed soft blue. Each one looked like they could break Jake in half with one hand. They watched him pass. Some of them laughed quietly. Others shook their heads. Jake heard whispers in their alien language. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. They thought he was a joke. The throne room was massive. The ceiling was so high that Jake could barely see it. Thousands of Valori nobles stood on both sides, dressed in armor and silk. At the far end of the room, on a throne made of black crystal, sat Queen Lyra. She was beautiful in a terrifying way. Her silver skin glowed under the lights. Her long white hair flowed down her shoulders like water. Her eyes were bright gold, and they watched Jake like a predator watching prey. She wore armor that hugged her body, decorated with symbols of her victories. She had conquered worlds. She had killed enemies with her bare hands. She was power itself, and she was supposed to be his wife. Jake walked forward. His boots echoed in the silence. Every Valori in the room stared at him. He felt their judgment. He felt their disgust. But he kept walking. He did not slow down. He did not look away. When he reached the bottom of the throne steps, he stopped and bowed his head slightly. Not too deep. Just enough to show respect. "Queen Lyra," he said, "I am Captain Jake Miller of Earth. I come in peace and with honor." For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. She studied him like he was an insect on her floor. Then she spoke. Her voice was cold and smooth. "So this is what Earth sends me. A small man with no visible strength." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Jake did not react. A tall Valori warrior stepped forward from beside the throne. He wore black armor covered in metals. His face was hard and cruel. This was High Commander Veth, the Queen's most trusted advisor. "Your Majesty," Veth said loudly, "this is an insult. Humans are the weakest species in the Federation. Their bones break easily. Their muscles tire quickly. They cannot survive without machines and medicine. This man is not worthy to clean your boots, let alone share your throne." More laughter. Louder this time. Jake remained still. Emma, standing far behind him, clenched her fists. She wanted to scream at them. She wanted to tell them about Jake's medals, his battles, his impossible missions. But she stayed quiet. This was Jake's moment. Queen Lyra raised her hand, and the room went silent. "Human," she said, "do you have anything to say for yourself?" Jake lifted his head and met her golden eyes. Most beings in the galaxy could not hold her gaze for more than a second. Her presence was too strong. Her power was too overwhelming. Jake held it for 5 seconds. 10, 15. Something flickered in Lyra's eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or curiosity. "I have nothing to prove with words," Jake said calmly. "Words are cheap. I will prove my worth through the trials, as your tradition demands." Veth snorted. "The trials will kill you, human." "Perhaps," Jake said. "But I have been killed before. It never seems to stick." The room went quiet. That was not the response they expected. Valori warriors did not make jokes about death. Death was sacred to them, final, absolute. But this human spoke of it like an old friend. Queen Lyra leaned forward on her throne. Her golden eyes narrowed. "You have faced death before, Captain Miller." "Many times, Your Majesty. And you are not afraid?" Jake thought about the question. He thought about his fallen soldiers. He thought about the nights he spent bleeding in the dirt, waiting for rescue that might never come. He thought about the faces of enemies he had killed and friends he had buried. "I am always afraid," he said honestly. "But fear has never stopped me." The Queen stared at him for a long time. The whole room waited for her response. Veth looked angry, ready to argue. The nobles whispered among themselves. Finally, Lyra sat back on her throne. "Interesting," she said softly. "The trials will begin tomorrow at dawn. You will face 3 tests that have broken warriors far stronger than you. If you survive, we will speak again. If you fail, your body will be sent back to Earth in pieces." She waved her hand, dismissing him. Jake bowed again and turned to leave. As he walked back through the silent crowd, he felt one pair of eyes following him more intensely than the others. Queen Lyra watched him go. She watched the way he walked, steady and unhurried. She watched the way he ignored the insults and the stares. She had seen that kind of calmness before, but only in warriors who had faced death so many times that they no longer feared it. There was something different about this human. She did not know what yet, but she intended to find out. That night, Jake stood on the balcony of his guest quarters. The alien stars filled the sky in colors he had never seen before. Emma stood beside him, still worried. "They want you to fail," she said. "They will make the trials impossible. I know." "Then what is your plan?" Jake looked at the stars and smiled that small, tired smile. "My plan is to do what humans have always done, Emma. Survive against the odds. Surprise everyone who underestimates us. And never, ever give up." He turned and walked back inside. Tomorrow, the trials would begin. Tomorrow, the Valori would learn what humans were truly made of. The sun rose over Valoria in shades of orange and red. Jake Miller stood at the entrance of the royal arena, dressed in simple training clothes. The massive stone structure stretched before him like the mouth of a hungry beast. 50,000 Valori filled the seats, all waiting to watch him fail. Emma walked beside him until the guards stopped her at the gate. "This is as far as I can go," she said. Her face was pale with worry. Jake nodded. "Watch from the stands. When this is over, we'll have dinner. When this is over, you might be dead. Then you can have my dessert." Emma wanted to smile, but she could not. She watched Jake walk through the gate and disappear into the shadows of the arena. The arena floor was made of hard black stone. Jake walked to the center and looked around. The crowd roared with noise, but none of it was cheering for him. They shouted insults. They threw small objects. They wanted blood. High Commander Veth appeared on a raised platform above the arena. He wore his finest armor and a cruel smile. "People of Valoria," he shouted, "today we witness the trials of worth. The human captain Jake Miller wishes to marry our beloved queen. But first, he must prove he deserves such an honor." The crowd laughed. "The trials are three," Veth continued. "The trial of endurance, the trial of combat, and the trial of will. Only those who pass all three may claim a place beside the throne." He looked down at Jake with hatred in his eyes. "Traditionally, the trials are difficult but fair. However, I have decided that a human must face a higher standard. After all, we must be certain he is worthy." Jake understood. Veth had changed the rules to make the trials impossible, but Jake said nothing. He simply waited. The first trial began immediately. Guards led Jake to a small metal chamber at the edge of the arena. The gravity chamber. Inside, special machines could increase the weight of gravity many times over. "The trial of endurance," Veth announced. "The human must survive inside the gravity chamber for 1 hour. Normal trials use 3 times Earth gravity. But for this human, we will use 8 times. Gasps came from some parts of the crowd. 8 times gravity was dangerous, even for Valori. For a human, it should be deadly. Jake stepped inside the chamber without hesitation. The door closed behind him with a heavy clang. Inside, the chamber was dark and cold. Jake stood in the center and took a deep breath. Then the machines activated. The weight hit him like a mountain falling on his shoulders. His knees bent, his spine compressed. Every organ in his body felt like it was being crushed. Breathing became difficult. His heart worked twice as hard to pump blood, 8 times gravity. Most humans would collapse in seconds. Jake closed his eyes. He had trained for this. For years, the Earth Defense Corps had prepared soldiers for extreme conditions. High-gravity training was standard for space combat. Jake had spent months in gravity chambers, pushing his body beyond its limits again and again. He sat down slowly, carefully, and crossed his legs. He controlled his breathing. Slow in, slow out. He entered a meditative state, focusing only on survival. Outside, the crowd watched on giant screens. They expected the human to scream. They expected him to fall. They expected blood from his nose and ears as his body failed. Instead, they saw him sitting calmly, breathing slowly, waiting. Minutes passed. 10, 20, 30. Veth's smile began to fade. 40 minutes. 50 minutes. 1 hour. Jake was still sitting, still breathing, still alive. The trial was 1 hour, Emma shouted from the stands. He passed. Open the chamber. But Veth did not give the order. He wanted Jake to suffer more. He wanted Jake to break. 70 minutes. 80 minutes. 90 minutes. Finally, Queen Lyra spoke from her royal box above the arena. Her voice was sharp and cold. "Open the chamber, Commander Veth. The trial is complete." Veth had no choice but to obey. The machines shut down. The door opened. Jake walked out slowly, his body aching, his muscles screaming. But he walked out on his own 2 feet. The arena fell silent. Jake looked up at the royal box and met the Queen's eyes. She stared at him with something new in her expression. Not respect, exactly, but not contempt either. Curiosity. Veth was furious, but he hid it behind a forced smile. Very impressive human. But endurance means nothing without the ability to fight. The second trial begins now. Guards brought Jake to the center of the arena again. This time, 3 massive Valori warriors entered from the opposite side. Each one was over 8 feet tall. Each one carried heavy weapons. Each one had killed hundreds of enemies in battle. "The trial of combat," Veth announced. Traditionally, A candidate faces one warrior. But for our human guest, he will face 3 at once. The crowd cheered. This was what they wanted. Violence. Blood. Death. Jake was given only a simple metal staff. No armor. No shield. The 3 warriors laughed at him. One of them spun his blade in a circle. Another cracked his neck. The third just smiled. "Little human," the biggest one said, "I will try not to kill you too quickly. I want to enjoy this." Jake gripped his staff and said nothing. The horn sounded. The trial began. The first warrior charged like a storm. He swung his massive sword at Jake's head. Jake ducked and rolled, moving faster than anyone expected. He came up behind the warrior and struck his knee with the staff. The warrior stumbled but did not fall. The second warrior attacked from the left. The third came from the right. Jake was surrounded, but something was happening inside his body. Something the Valori did not understand. Adrenaline. Humans had developed this chemical over millions of years of survival. When danger came, the human body released adrenaline into the blood. Time seemed to slow down. Strength increased. Pain disappeared. Fear became fuel. Jake felt the adrenaline flood his system like fire in his veins. He moved to the Valori watching. It looked impossible. The small human became a blur of motion. He dodged attacks that should have killed him. He struck pressure points that the warriors did not even know they had. He used their size against them, making them crash into each other. The first warrior fell when Jake struck his throat. The second fell when Jake swept his legs and drove the staff into his chest. The third, the biggest one, grabbed Jake and lifted him off the ground. "Got you now, little human," he growled. Jake headbutted him. Once, twice, 3 times. The warrior's grip loosened from shock. Jake dropped down, grabbed the warrior's arm, and used leverage to flip him over his shoulder. The giant crashed into the stone floor. Jake stood over him, breathing hard, blood on his face. The staff in his hand. The arena was completely silent. 3 of the strongest warriors in the Empire lay defeated at the feet of a human. Queen Lyra stood in her royal box. Her golden eyes were wide. Her hands gripped the railing. "What is he?" She whispered to her attendant. The attendant had no answer. Veth looked like he might explode with rage. His face turned dark purple. His hands shook. "This proves nothing," he shouted. "Any fool can win a fight with luck. The final trial will reveal the truth. The trial of will. And this trial will be conducted by the Queen herself." Gasps filled the arena. The trial of will had not been conducted by a monarch in over 1,000 years. It was the most dangerous trial of all. It involved entering the candidate's mind directly. If Queen Lyra performed this trial, she would see everything inside Jake's head. Every memory, every fear, every weakness, and if his will was not strong enough, she would destroy his mind completely. Jake looked up at the Queen. She looked down at him. Neither of them looked away. "Tomorrow," Lyra said, her voice carrying across the silent arena. "The final trial will be tomorrow. Rest well, human. You will need every bit of strength you have left." She turned and left the royal box. Jake stood alone in the arena, surrounded by defeated warriors and silent crowds. He had survived 2 impossible trials, but the hardest one was yet to come. The Queen's private combat chamber was nothing like the arena. There were no crowds here, no cheering, no insults. Just a small circular room made of ancient stone, lit by floating crystals that gave off soft blue light. Jake stood in the center of the room. His wounds from yesterday's battle had been treated, but his body still ached. He did not show it. Queen Lyra entered from a hidden door. She wore no armor today. Instead, she was dressed in a simple silver robe that flowed around her like moonlight. Without her crown and weapons, she looked younger. more beautiful, but no less dangerous. Her attendants tried to follow her, but she raised her hand. "Leave us. This trial requires privacy." The attendants bowed and left. The door closed with a heavy sound. Now it was just Jake and Lyra. Alone, she walked toward him slowly. Her golden eyes studied every part of him. The cuts on his face, the bruises on his arms, the way he stood straight despite his pain. "You surprised me yesterday," she said. "I did not expect a human to survive the gravity chamber. I certainly did not expect you to defeat 3 of my warriors. I'm full of surprises, Your Majesty." A tiny smile touched her lips. "Just for a moment. The trial of will is different from the others," she explained. "It is not about physical strength. It is about the strength inside your mind. Your soul. I will enter your thoughts directly. I will see everything you are, everything you have been, everything you fear." Jake nodded. He had expected this. If your will is strong, you will survive. If it is weak, your mind will shatter. You will become an empty shell. "Do you understand?" "I understand. Are you afraid?" Jake thought about the question. He thought about his memories. There were dark things inside his head, things he had never told anyone, things that still woke him up at night. "Yes," he said honestly, "but I'm ready." Lyra stepped closer. They were only a few feet apart now. She was taller than him, looking down with those powerful golden eyes. "No one has ever passed this trial when I conducted it personally," she said quietly. "Warriors twice your size have broken under my gaze. Are you truly prepared to let me see inside you? I have nothing to hide. Whatever you find in there, it's just the truth of who I am." Something in her expression changed. She seemed almost impressed. "Very well. Close your eyes." Jake closed his eyes. He felt her hands touch his temples. Her fingers were cool against his skin. Then, everything went dark. When Jake opened his eyes again, he was no longer in the chamber. He was standing in the middle of a battlefield. Bodies lay everywhere. Human bodies. The sky was orange with fire. The air smelled like smoke and blood. Jake recognized this place immediately. Regar 7. The worst day of his life. He heard footsteps behind him and turned. Queen Lyra stood there, but she looked like a ghost. Transparent. Floating. This was his memory, and she was just a visitor. "This is your past," she said. "Show me what happened here." Jake did not have to show her. The memory played on its own. He watched himself, younger, carrying a wounded soldier on his back. Enemy fire exploded around him. His squad was dead. All of them. He was the only one still moving. The only one still fighting. "Keep going, Captain," the wounded soldier whispered. "Don't stop." The younger Jake kept going. His legs screamed with pain. His lungs burned. But he did not stop. He walked for miles through enemy territory, dodging patrols, hiding in shadows, carrying his friend the whole way. When he finally reached safety, the soldier in his arms was already dead. Jake had carried a corpse for the last 3 miles without knowing it. Queen Lyra watched the memory with wide eyes. She saw the younger Jake fall to his knees. She heard him scream. Not with fear, not with pain, with grief so deep it seemed to tear his soul apart. "You blame yourself," she said softly. "I was their captain. It was my job to bring them home. I failed." The memory shifted. Now they were in a hospital room. Jake lay in a bed, covered in bandages. Doctors said he would never walk again. His spine was damaged. His future was over, but the memory showed Jake standing anyway, falling, standing again, falling, standing again. For months, he fought his own body until he could walk. Then run, and fight. How? Lyra asked. Your species is supposed to be fragile. How did you survive wounds that would have killed my strongest warriors? Jake looked at her in the memory world. Because dying was easy. Living was the hard part. And I have never been good at taking the easy path. The memories kept coming. Lyra saw Jake fight in a dozen battles. She saw him get shot, stabbed, beaten. She saw him get back up every single time. She saw him make impossible choices. Sacrifice friends to save missions. Hold the line when everyone else ran. She saw the faces that haunted his dreams. The dead who visited him every night. And through it all, she felt something that shocked her. His will. That it was not like anything she had ever experienced. Valori willpower was like steel. Hard and cold and unbreaking. But human willpower was different. It was like fire. It burned. It consumed. It never stopped growing. Jake's will was a storm of fire that refused to die. No matter how much pain came, no matter how much loss, the fire kept burning. Lyra tried to push deeper into his mind. She tried to find the weakness, the breaking point. Every being had one. Every being could be broken. But the deeper she pushed, the more resistance she found. And then something happened that had never happened. Before Jake pushed back, his mind rejected her presence. Not with violence, not with anger, just with pure, stubborn refusal. This is my mind, Jake said calmly in the memory world. You've seen enough. Lyra felt herself being pushed out. She fought it. She was the queen. Her psychic power was unmatched in the galaxy. No one could force her out of their mind. But Jake did. With a gasp, Lyra stumbled backward in the real world. Her hands left Jake's temples. She was breathing hard. Her golden eyes were wide with shock. Jake opened his eyes slowly. He looked tired but unbroken. Are you all right, Your Majesty? He asked. Lyra stared at him. For the first time in her life, she had been defeated in psychic combat. A human had pushed her out of his mind. What are you? She whispered. Just a man, Jake said. A man who has learned that the only way forward is through. Lyra was silent for a long moment. Then she straightened up and composed her expression. When she spoke, her voice was formal but different. Softer. You have passed the trial of will. You are worthy to stand beside the throne of Valoria. Jake bowed his head slightly. Thank you, Your Majesty. Lyra turned to leave, but she stopped at the door. The wedding will be in 3 days. Prepare yourself. She paused. And Captain Miller, I look forward to knowing more about you. She left. Jake stood alone in the chamber, finally letting out a long breath. His head was pounding. His body was shaking. But he had done it. He had passed all 3 trials. That night, Jake found himself unable to sleep. He walked out to the balcony of his quarters and looked at the alien stars. He heard footsteps behind him and turned. To his surprise, Queen Lyra was standing there. No guards, no attendants. Just her, still wearing that simple silver robe. You should not be here alone, Jake said. It's not safe. I am the most dangerous thing on this planet, she replied. I am always safe. She walked to stand beside him and looked at the stars. I saw your memories today, she said quietly. I saw what you have suffered, what you have lost. She turned to look at him. I have a question. Ask, how do your people endure such pain? Your lives are so short. Your bodies are so fragile. Yet you carry such heavy burdens and keep moving forward. How? Jake thought about the question for a long time. We don't have a choice, he finally said. Our weakness is our strength. Because we can break, we learn to bend. Because we can die, we learn to cherish every moment. Because we suffer, we learn to hope. Lyra was silent. Pain doesn't make us weaker, Jake continued. It makes us human. And being human means never giving up. No matter what. Lyra looked at him with new eyes. Not as a weak alien. Not as a political tool. But as something else. Something she had never encountered before. "You are not what I expected, Captain Miller," she said softly. "Neither are you, Your Majesty." She smiled. A real smile. Just for a moment. Then she turned and walked away into the darkness. Jake watched her go. Something had changed between them. He did not know what it was yet, but he could feel it beginning. The eve of the royal wedding was supposed to be a night of celebration. The whole capital city of Valoria glowed with lights. Music played in every street. People danced and sang and prepared for a new era of alliance between the Valori Empire and Earth. Jake Miller stood in his guest quarters, dressed in formal human military uniform. Emma Park helped him adjust his medals. "You actually did it," she said with a smile. "You passed all 3 trials. Tomorrow you marry a queen." "Don't remind me," Jake said. "I still don't know what I'm supposed to say at the ceremony." "I think 'I do' covers most of it." Jake almost laughed. But then he heard something. A distant boom. Then another. Then screaming. He ran to the window. In the distance, the sky was on fire. Ships were attacking the city. Not enemy ships from another empire. Valori ships. Someone was bombing their own capital. What's happening? Emma shouted. The door burst open. A Valori guard stumbled in, bleeding from a wound on his chest. "The palace is under attack," he gasped. "Warlord Kren has started a rebellion. They're coming for the queen." Jake grabbed the guard's weapon, a plasma pistol. "Where is she?" "The throne room." High Commander Veth was supposed to protect her, but the guard coughed blood. "Veth is a traitor. He works for Kren. He's going to capture the queen and give her to the enemy." Jake felt cold fury fill his chest. Veth, of course. The man who had tried so hard to make Jake fail the trials. The man who hated humans and hated the Alliance. "Stay here," Jake told Emma. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me." "Jake, you can't fight an army alone. Watch me." He ran out of the room before she could argue. The palace was in chaos. Guards fought against other guards. Some were loyal to the queen. Others wore the black symbols of Warlord Kren's rebellion. Bodies lay everywhere. The beautiful white walls were stained with blood. Jake moved fast. He knew the path to the throne room from his first day here. He shot 2 rebels who tried to stop him. He dodged a grenade that exploded behind him. He kept running. When he reached the throne room, the doors were already open. Inside, he saw a nightmare. Queen Lyra stood in the center of the room, surrounded by a dozen of Kren's elite soldiers. Her golden eyes blazed with fury. She had killed 3 of them already. Their bodies lay at her feet. But more kept coming, and she was unarmed. Behind the soldiers stood High Commander Veth. He was smiling. "Your Majesty," Veth said in a mocking voice, "the era of peace is over. Warlord Kren will bring the Empire back to its true glory. Strength through conquest. Power through blood. Your alliance with the weak humans ends tonight." "You are a traitor to your people," Lyra spat. "I am a patriot." "You are the traitor, Lyra, marrying a human? Sharing your throne with a species that cannot even survive on our world without machines. You have become weak, and the weak do not deserve to rule." Lyra prepared to fight, but she was surrounded. Even for the strongest warrior in the Empire, these odds were impossible. That was when Jake walked through the door. Get away from her? Every head turned. Veth's eyes went wide with surprise, then filled with contempt. "The human?" He laughed. "Did you come to die beside your bride? How romantic." Jake raised the plasma pistol and shot 2 soldiers before they could react. They fell. The others turned toward him. "Kill him," Veth ordered. 4 soldiers charged at Jake. They were huge. They were fast. They were the best warriors in the rebellion. But Jake had adrenaline. The chemical flooded his blood again, turning the world sharp and slow. He dropped the empty pistol and grabbed a metal candlestick from a table. Not a proper weapon, but anything could be a weapon in the right hands. The first soldier swung a blade at Jake's head. Jake ducked and drove the candlestick into the soldier's throat. The second soldier kicked at Jake's chest. Jake grabbed the leg and used the momentum to flip the soldier into the third one. The fourth soldier was smarter. He hung back and waited. When Jake turned toward him, he threw a knife. Jake caught it. The room went still for 1 second. Even Lyra looked shocked. Jake threw the knife back. It buried itself in the soldier's eye. Now only the soldiers surrounding Lyra remained. 6 of them. Plus Veth. Veth drew his own blade. I will handle this myself. He attacked with the speed and skill of a high commander. Jake had no weapon left. He had only his body. The fight was brutal. Veth was taller, stronger, faster. His blade cut Jake 3 times in the first 10 seconds. Blood ran down Jake's arm, his side, his leg. But Jake did not fall. Every cut made the adrenaline pump harder. Every wound made him fight more fiercely. This was the human secret. This was what the galaxy did not understand. Humans did not become weaker when they were hurt. They became more dangerous. Jake grabbed Veth's sword arm and twisted. The blade fell. Jake headbutted Veth, breaking his nose. Veth stumbled back. Jake picked up the fallen blade and drove it through Veth's chest. The traitor's eyes went wide. "Impossible," he whispered. "You are just a human." "Yes," Jake said. "Just a human." Veth fell dead. The remaining soldiers around Lyra hesitated. Their leader was dead. The human who had killed him was covered in blood, still standing, holding a sword. "Your choice," Jake said to them. "Leave now and live. Stay and die." They ran. Jake dropped the sword and fell to one knee. The adrenaline was fading. The pain was rushing in. He was losing blood fast. Lyra ran to him and caught him before he collapsed completely. "Jake," she said. She used his first name. She had never done that before. "Are you hurt?" he asked, looking up at her. "You're asking me if I'm hurt?" She almost laughed. "You're bleeding everywhere. Doesn't matter. Are you safe?" She stared at him. This human, this small, fragile human. He had fought through an army. He had killed her enemies. He was dying in her arms. And his only concern was whether she was safe. "I'm safe," she said softly. "Thanks to you." Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Lyra's loyal guards finally arrived, led by a captain who looked horrified at the scene. "Your Majesty, the rebellion is being pushed back. Warlord Kren has fled the city. Are you injured?" "I am fine," Lyra said. "But he is not. Get the healers. Now, the best healers in the Empire. If he dies, I will execute everyone in this room." The guards ran to obey. Jake's vision was fading. Everything was becoming dark and cold. "Stay with me," Lyra said. Her voice sounded different, frightened. "Jake, stay with me." "Trying," he whispered. "But I think I might take a little nap." "Don't you dare. That's an order from your queen." Jake smiled weakly. "Haven't married you yet?" "You're not my queen." "Then marry me now. Right here." Jake blinked. Was he hallucinating? "In front of my guards, in front of my enemies, I choose you," Lyra said quickly. "I declare you my equal and my partner. Now you have to obey me. So do not die." Jake felt something warm in his chest. Not blood. Something else. Something he had not felt in a very long time. "Okay," he said. "But you owe me a real wedding later." Then everything went black. When the healers arrived, they found Queen Lyra of the Valori Empire, the most powerful warrior in the galaxy, holding a dying human in her arms and crying. She had never cried before. She did not care who saw. The Royal Medical Bay was the most advanced healing center in the galaxy. Machines hummed and glowed with soft light. Monitors displayed information in alien symbols. The best doctors and healers in the Valori Empire stood around a single bed, watching something impossible. Jake Miller was healing. The wounds that should have killed him were closing. Slowly, painfully, but closing. His human body was rebuilding itself with a stubbornness that the Valori doctors could not explain. His species has remarkable regeneration, one doctor whispered to another. Their cells refuse to accept death. They just keep fighting. It is not just biology, the other doctor replied. There is something in his spirit. His will to live is extraordinary. In the corner of the room, Queen Lyra sat in a chair. She had not left since Jake was brought here 3 days ago. She did not eat. She barely slept. She just sat and watched and waited. Her advisors begged her to return to her duties. The rebellion had been crushed. Warlord Kren had been captured, trying to escape the planet. There were matters of state to attend to, speeches to give, prisoners to judge. Lyra refused to move. When he wakes up, she said, I will be here. On the 4th day, Jake opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was white ceiling. The second thing he saw was Lyra's face looking down at him. You look terrible, he said. His voice was rough and weak. Lyra laughed. It was a strange sound. She was not sure she had ever laughed like that before. You almost died, she said. Multiple times. The doctor said your heart stopped twice. Only twice? I'm getting better. She shook her head. How can you joke about this? Jake tried to sit up and winced with pain. Lyra gently pushed him back down. Don't move. You need to rest. How long was I out? 4 days. Jake closed his eyes. What happened to Kren? Captured. His rebellion has been destroyed. His allies have been arrested. The Dominion forces he was working with have retreated from our borders. Lyra paused. You saved the Empire, Jake. If you had not stopped Veth, if you had not protected me, everything would have been lost. Just doing my job. Your job was to marry me for political purposes. Your job was not to fight through an army with no weapons and take wounds that would kill any other being in the galaxy. Jake opened his eyes again and looked at her. Really looked at her. Maybe it wasn't about the job anymore. Lyra was silent. Her golden eyes shimmered with something that might have been tears. I have ruled this empire for 50 years, she said quietly. I have never needed anyone. Never wanted anyone. I thought love was weakness. I thought emotion was a flaw that lesser species suffered from. She reached out and took his hand. Then you came along. Small and fragile and completely impossible. And you made me feel things I've never felt before. Jake squeezed her hand weakly. Is that a complaint? No, it is a confession. She took a deep breath. I declared you my equal during the attack, in front of my guards. That declaration is binding under Valori law. So we're married? Technically, yes. But I want to do it properly. I want the whole empire to see. I want the whole galaxy to know. Know what? Lyra stood up and looked out the window at the rebuilding city below. That I was wrong about humans. That I was wrong about you. That the man I am marrying is not my political partner, but my chosen one. She turned back to him. If you still want me. Jake smiled. I crossed the galaxy, passed 3 impossible trials, and killed a dozen warriors to stand beside you. I think I'm committed. 1 week later, the wedding ceremony took place. The throne room had been rebuilt and decorated with flowers from 100 worlds. Representatives from every species in the Galactic Federation attended. Cameras broadcast the event to trillions of beings across the stars. Jake stood at the altar, dressed in a uniform that combined Earth military tradition with Valori royal style. He looked healthy again, though he still moved a little slowly. His wounds had healed into scars that he would carry forever. Emma Park stood behind him as his witness. She was crying happy tears. The great doors opened, and Queen Lyra entered. She wore a gown of pure white that flowed behind her like a river of snow. A crown of silver and diamonds rested on her white hair. She looked like a goddess descending from heaven, but her eyes were fixed only on Jake. She walked toward him through the silent crowd. Every step was measured. Every movement was grace. When she reached him, she took his hands. The high priest began the ceremony. He spoke of duty and alliance and tradition. But neither Jake nor Lyra heard the words. They were too busy looking at each other. When the time came for the vows, Lyra spoke first. I, Lyra, Queen of the Valori Empire, take you as my equal and my partner. Not because politics demand it, not because treaties require it, but because you showed me what true strength means. You showed me that power is not about size or force. It is about heart. It is about will. It is about never giving up, no matter what. She paused. I have conquered worlds. I have defeated armies. But you conquered something I thought was impossible to reach. You conquered me. Jake felt his heart pounding in his chest. I, Jake Miller, Captain of Earth, take you as my equal and my partner, he said. I came here expecting a political arrangement. I found something I never expected to find again. Hope, purpose, love. He lifted her hands to his lips and kissed them. I cannot promise that I will never fall, but I can promise that I will always get back up. For you, for us, for whatever future we build together. The high priest declared them bound. Then came the moment that would be remembered for generations. Tradition demanded that the lower-ranking partner bow to the higher one. Jake was supposed to bow to Lyra. Everyone expected it. Everyone waited for it. But Jake did not bow. He stood tall and looked directly into Lyra's eyes. And Queen Lyra, the most powerful warrior in the galaxy, ruler of 100 planets, conqueror of empires, bowed her head to him first. The crowd gasped. Lyra lifted her head and smiled at their shock. Then she turned to face the assembled guests and the cameras broadcasting to the galaxy. People of Valoria, she said in a strong, clear voice. People of the Federation, today I take a human as my partner. Many of you thought this was foolish. Many of you thought humans were weak. She took Jake's hand and raised it high. We were wrong. All of us. Humans are not weak. They are not fragile. They are survivors. They are fighters. They are the most stubborn, most determined, most impossible species in the galaxy. She looked at Jake with pride and love. They fall down, and they get back up. They break, and they heal. They face death, and they laugh at it. This is not weakness. This is a kind of strength we do not possess. A kind of strength we need to learn. She turned back to the crowd. The Valori Empire and Earth are now united. Not just by treaty. Not just by marriage. But by something deeper. We will learn from them. And they will learn from us. Together, we will be stronger than either of us ever was alone. The crowd erupted in cheers. Not all of them. Some Valori would never accept a human in the royal palace. But many of them. Enough of them. Later that night, Jake and Lyra stood together on the palace balcony. The celebrations continued below, but they had escaped to have a quiet moment alone. The alien stars filled the sky in colors. Jake was still learning to name. You really meant what you said? Jake asked. About learning from humans? Every word, Lyra said. You changed my mind about many things, Captain Miller. Just captain? I thought I was your equal now. She smiled and leaned her head against his shoulder. Such a small, intimate gesture. Something a Valori queen would never have done before. "What do humans call this feeling?" she asked softly. "This warmth. This connection. This need to be near someone, even when there is no logical reason." Jake put his arm around her. "We call it love." Lyra was silent for a moment, testing the word. "Love," she repeated. "It is a small word for such a large feeling. Humans like small words. We pack a lot into them." She laughed softly. "What do we do now, Jake? The Empire is stable. The alliance is sealed. Our enemies are defeated. What comes next?" Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, his people. Now, they were connected to this vast alien empire by something stronger than treaties. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," he said. "That's how humans do things. We find people worth fighting for, and we never let them go." Lyra turned in his arms and kissed him. It was their first real kiss. Not political, not ceremonial. Just two beings who had somehow found each other across the impossible distances of space. When the kiss ended, Lyra smiled. "For a fragile species," she said. "You are remarkably strong." Jake smiled back. "That's the secret no one tells you about humans," he said. "We are all fragile. Every single one of us. But we are also all unstoppable. It just depends on what we're fighting for." He pulled her close, and now I have something worth fighting for. The stars shone down on them. The galaxy waited ahead with all its dangers and wonders. But for this moment, there was only Jake and Lyra, two hearts from different worlds, beating together at last.